Our Supreme Leader Trump has found out a solution to the housing crisis for young people. Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or go stout. Many of the most prominent influencers in today's time have talked about how hard it is for Gen Z to buy a house or even get a start in today's world. With this sentiment spreading across the youth, our great Supreme Leader Trump has found a solution that's good for every young person. Instead of 30-year mortgages introduced by FDR, Trump wants to revolutionize the housing market and introduce a 50-year mortgage for young people, giving young people a lower monthly payment. I gotta cut the act. This is the dumbest thing I've heard in my life. I've heard the argument that FDR's 30-year mortgage was a terrible idea, but I've never heard someone add to that argument and say,
we should make the loan last even longer.
If you've ever had a loan, you know the longer you have the loan, the more interest that you pay, and that would be no different for a 50-year home mortgage. This has to be one of the dumbest things that Trump has ever said, and that is saying something for a president like him.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
I know people see homes as like an investment, you know, you're gonna build that wealth over time. But have we forgot that like a home or a space to live is a necessity? Like shelter is one of the most important things people need. But if you say anything like that to a boomer, they just see you as a communist. It just seems so out of touch to tell a generation that's tired of debt slavery that the only way they can build a house and make wealth is to get into more debt slavery. And just like how our government handles every problem, here's a band-aid for a gunshot wound. I'm no genius economist, but it doesn't seem too hard to fix this problem. I feel like one of the most obvious places to start would be getting foreign investment out of our housing market, or at least put some type of restriction on buying single family homes when you have a crisis of birth rates and single families not being able to afford homes. Or if our system is so reliant on selling homes to BlackRock, how about we make it easier for families to buy homes and have a different process for those businesses to buy homes? I mentioned Glass-Steagall in the last video where FDR made it so that commercial and investment banking were separated. Maybe a new piece of legislation should separate commercial home buying and investment home buying. I kind of laughed when I went on Twitter to see the screenshot of Trump's Truth Social post about this. Many of the replies were also saying that it was a bad idea, but were looking at it from a very weird lens. People pointed to the fact that the average life expectancy is around 75 in America and said that a 50-year mortgage would be 2/3 of your life, but you're wrong. It's actually your entire life if you think about it. If we assume that this is supposed to help young home buyers, so let's say anybody from 25 to 30, let's go with 25 just to make it really simple, and you sign a 50-year mortgage at 25, then you will pay the house off by the time you're dead, which I guess ties back into the Latin roots of the word mortgage, which basically means a dead pledge, a agreement that you will either pay off or the pledge will end once you die. How long before they're just offering generational mortgages? Because America's floating 50 years, China already has 70 years. That just seems like the next logical step for a system that doesn't understand how to maintain itself, and it would play directly into the quote of "you'll own nothing and be happy." I always thought when the World Economic Forum said this, that a country like America wouldn't be the Trojan horse used to implement this system, because we are one of the most capitalist countries ever. But when you take Biden's presidency that built a bunch of distrust and mix it in with the presidency that we have now that is just really creating a lot of anger, then it all starts to paint a clear road into the 2030s where they may try to implement something like this. When I hear things like this, it breaks my heart. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have found a way to maybe separate myself from this generation. While I do feel very much close to this generation, I am at that 28 years old mark. I was born in 97, so I saw how millennials had it growing up as well. So I've always just kind of watched from the sidelines and thought that my experiences were kind of just my own. Obviously, making this YouTube channel and seeing how many people these issues resonate with has changed that to some extent. But when I read these headlines of everything going bad for Gen Z, this is not a surprise to me. As someone who has seen friends go through immense amounts of credit card debt, student loan debt, just to have no job after, and the stupid new creations like Affirm. The things that were being painted for our future were very easy to see. Having someone put it into words was never really something I needed someone to do. So this mindset always made me feel like an outsider to the problems going on around me. It's no secret on this channel that I'm unemployed. It's no secret that I'm unemployed on this channel. I've talked about it several times. I have several videos about it. But that was, again, a personal choice, and I make sure to state that every time I bring it up, because for many people, when they enter unemployment, it's not a personal choice. Many people have been fired, forced to resign, or even laid off. But while I know for myself it hasn't been easy, the fact that it was a choice makes it hard for me to feel bad for myself when I know there's other people, even younger than me, that didn't have the choice and had the rug pulled out from under them. These are talented minds. These are people who are eager to make change in their neighborhoods or the world. But at every door they knock on, they're turned away. The only person willing to offer them advice is some type of crypto trader or product seller that really doesn't have their best intention at heart. People talk about nihilism, but I don't even think it's nihilism. I think it's being very real about your situation, and that was one thing that I had to do to make any sort of progress. This copium that boomers spit into the air about working harder or trying harder is what creates this nihilistic mindset. Many people my age have really found peace in being honest about what the world has done to them and generations before us, and that feeling ignites some sort of spark. Something that's very hard to accept for the establishment that's currently in power right now is there's not much difference from a Mamdani and a Nick Fuentes. Hear me out, because I know that sounds insane, but I'm not talking about their more radical views, especially on the Nick Fuentes side. There's a lot of views that I don't agree with, but in terms of the sentiment that a lot of his audience agrees with and the sentiment that a Zoran voter would agree with are the same. Everything has been priced out for younger people, and it is causing life to be a living hell. And this is why I think everything goes down to the fundamental principle that if you take care of the economy and give people good outcomes, then all the other problems tend to be not as big of an issue. But when you let problems stack up, give people fake solutions, and do nothing to really change the situation, then you have people turning to the most extreme answers. Because this half-brained idea of extending the length of a mortgage to make it easier for young people to buy into this economy is not something that's new. On this channel, I've told the story about when I bought my first car in high school and how I ended up financing it and paying way more than I needed to over like 5 years. And instead of fixing the broken system that is auto finance and just financing on credit in general, they always just turn to the solution of extending the payments. I went to a dealership with a friend not too long ago because he got in a car accident and needed to switch his vehicle, and I kid you not, after my friend chose the car that he was interested in, the first thing the guy said to him was that we can finance up to 96 months. And right after he said that, he said, "Are you sure you don't want to get the luxury model of the same vehicle?" The problem with our system is that it requires people to put their hands in your pocket for it to sustain itself. In the past, I've said this is late stage capitalism, which it might be. I think a simpler way to view it is just crony capitalism. People have gone into the system and have purposely manipulated the rules to benefit a subsect of people over the rest. People, rightfully so, will go back into history and point to where America started to decline and where the average worker started to build a negative sentiment, and then they always end up at a very radical solution to the problem. While I don't have the answers to everything, I don't think it requires a very radical solution. As I said in the start of the video, the answers to this problem are very simple. It's not about over-regulation, but it's about having regulation that puts some type of guardrails on the business that's able to be done. Some type of regulation that puts an emphasis on the worker or the family at least, rather than the corporation. But what should we expect from the president that has helped private prisons grow at an all-time high? But capitalism is working at its best, man. This is such a good system, and there's nothing that we need to change. It makes a lot of sense that Jeff Bezos can rent out the entirety of Venice, but I will never see a future where I own a home. But again, what do I know? Just an unemployed guy playing Call of Duty, giving my opinions. It's the weekend, it's Saturday, go out and enjoy yourselves. I'm sorry this had to be the topic of conversation for the weekend, but it just really was on my radar. If you agree or disagree, let me know down below in the comments. I do read the comments, and I don't know, man, just become ungovernable. If you follow what they tell you, you're gonna end up in a very sad spot. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to join the thread. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghost Thread, signing off.